Hey everyone, welcome back to CryptoCache. Thank you very much for joining me here today. I hope you're having an amazing day. We're going to take a quick look at RMKR. Remarker is what I want to call it. I don't think that's it, but regardless, that's what we're going to check out. Now, I got this question a lot recently. What's going on? Where's it going to go? How much further is it going to go until it stops? We're going to try to address all that here today. So just before we do, though, we want to peek over at Bitcoin, kind of see what's going on. It's important to understand that. I know there's not a direct correlation because obviously it's doing different than Bitcoin, but it's important to understand that there's sometimes correlations, sometimes there's separations essentially, and obviously that's the case. But we need to know how Bitcoin is performing. Bitcoin is essentially holding above the 50-day simple moving average. This is kind of like the saving grace for us here. It's also never really traveling below 56,000. We had this sell-off yesterday that pretty much stayed in place. So right now we got this nice period of consolidation. Bitcoin does this for usually about a day or two, and then we see some kind of major shift. So I'm speculating we're going to see an increase tomorrow before the weekend. That's my guess, just based on the way that it looks like it's kind of preparing to increase with this low consolidation period and the fact that it's just kind of staying above the 50. Ultimately, this is a good thing because if we got the 50-day moving average work its way up, we'll eventually have a golden cross in the 4-hour chart. And that's a very, very important thing because Bitcoin has a tendency of taking off in history. In its history, I think most of the time, there's been rare occasions where it didn't. When we have a golden cross, the price has a tendency of increasing more significantly than other times. All right, so just keep in mind that could very well happen. That's what we're hoping for. It'd be really nice to see that. Also, too, excuse me, if you are new to the channel, I'm not a financial advisor, right? This is for educational purposes. And my goal here is to essentially make sure that you understand how to become a better trader. Now, I can't do that in every single video. I try to, keep them short and sweet and to the point so I can get more videos out. But generally speaking, I like to kind of help educate on the process. So, if that's something that floats your boat, great. We've got a trading community as well. Link in the description below for that. If you're interested in something along those lines, I actually send out signals for all the trades I take so you can kind of see what it's like to effectively be able to trade in this industry, in this market. I do have a fairly high success rate, so there is that. Obviously, sometimes are better than others, but that's just the way it goes. The key is to maximize your gains and minimize your losses, right? And that comes with good risk tolerance, good practice. So let's go ahead and take a look at the one-day chart and see what's going on. All right, first and foremost, got the 50-day simple moving average traveling behind. Not a big deal, don't need to worry about that. The RSI is up over 70, which is, in my opinion, on this one-day chart, very good sign. We ultimately like to see that because it usually will stay above for some time once that resistance level has been broken. And we can tell that there's a resistance level has been broken, probably around $48.60. That probably allowed the price action to continue higher. And what I mean by that is Fibonacci has different retracement levels. You can see it retraced initially when it hit that level and came down, and then of course today we saw kind of a bounce, right? We got that 24-hour increase, if you will. So it's a really good sign. All good stuff here on the one-day candlesticks. Let's go ahead and see what the 4-hour chart is as well. Now we'd had basically a bounce here, so it's kind of in more cases than not a MACD convergence, right? So we're going to mark that on the chart and take a look at the Mogul Cloud and see if we had a crossover there as well. Because oftentimes when you get a MACD convergence, which is a very, very good signal to go along, you get the MACD, or correction, the Mogul Cloud crossover on the 1-hour chart. And those two communicate very effectively. Oftentimes I refer to it as a double rainbow. You might hear me say that once in a while. This likely had that type of setup, if you will, just before it took off or as it was taking off. So a lot of times when you see a momentum play like this, you can comfortably jump in if it meets those qualifications, right? So that's really cool. And on top of that too, Bitcoin's doing nothing but stuck on stupid going sideways, and this one is increasing. That's also a very good sign too, that it could have a strong tendency of continuation, right? We want to see if this had enough breathing room in between. In fact, why don't we take a look at that now? Because you can tell here that the TD sequential, you got to reset right here. So we go from a 1 up to a 7, comes back down, and now we're reset back up to a 4. So hypothetically, again, TD sequential allows for us to go to a 9 without retracement, or in most cases, you count up to a 9. What that's doing is just taking the 4th previous candlestick and counting up from there. And once it hits a 9, it's supposed to retrace or consolidate. That's kind of just the general rule of thumb. Sometimes crypto does weird things, right? It keeps going. KuCoin did that recently. We had like 5 days of bullish momentum past the 9, extreme overtime, and eventually sold off 30%. But Rmrk doesn't have that tendency right now. It doesn't have that quality. We're at a 4 on the 4-hour chart, which basically just means that we have roughly, that's 20 hours worth of bullish momentum potentially left in the tank. So just something to note We could very well break this high here at about $54 or $55 if you round up a little bit, and it could continue upwards, right? Could be a nice continuation. So I just want to kind of point that out. Let's take a look at the 1 hour, kind of see what's going on. Mogul Cloud. This is what I was referring to. All right, so take a look at this here. Just really quick, kind of drive this point home. This is what I refer to as a double rainbow, right? Because I marked here on the 4 hour chart where the MACD converged, right? So that basically told us the bears are losing control and the bulls are gaining control. That occurred right here. Now, what is it? No less than 1, 2, maybe 3. Okay, no, probably maybe somewhere in the range of 3 to 7 hours before the cloud, the price broke above the cloud. The conversion line then broke above the baseline. And we have this lagging span trailing behind. So those are all perfect, good things that we want to look at to identify, a potential breakout, right? So I know hindsight's 2020, I get that. But just say you were here, like you're right here and you took a look, you're like, okay, great. We're above the cloud, we got a MACD convergence. That would be a pretty strong consideration for entry. Those aren't the only things you use to take entry, but it's very helpful if you note that there's bullish momentum and everything else is kind of working very well. I mean, obviously this broke free from Bitcoin too in a sense, and there's that also combination. So handful of little things you want to look at, but that is essentially what we're looking at there. Okay, so now let's go ahead and look at the current scenario here before the cloud, right? Is it going to continue on? So in hindsight, typically when you take entry on a coin like this, for example, you want the price to be above the cloud, you want the lagging span to not be intersecting with the price action, which is this green guy here. So this is not intersecting with the price. The conversion line is higher than the baseline. And of course, we're above the cloud. So we've got 3 out of 3 qualifiers here for a position, right? Now, when I say a position, I don't mean like now's a good time to invest. I just mean that if you're already in this position right now, you don't have any signals that we need to sell your position, right? Because the cloud is a very good conservative indication of telling us when to get in and when to get out, both after the momentum has started and before the momentum ends, right? So right now at this point in time, we have no indication of that. And that gives me confidence here in saying that if you want to maybe consider adding to your position or open a position to the upside, this might be a good consideration for that. Okay, so again, just something to think about. Is it going to continue upwards? It's hard to say, but it does have, it has all the right creations here. In other words, when it came up here, right, we come up here, we came down, it kind of went down to this lower Fibonacci retracement level, so closer to about $40. Then we got the bounce, it tested, rejected, and tested again. In fact, this is almost a cup and handle pattern. If you can see where it broke out right there, right? So on the 1 hour, that's effectively what we see there. Now, the reason why that occurred and the reason why it happened well is because the Fibonacci retracement levels are based on major resistance lines. Now, I drew this out all the way up to here, but had we drawn it up to here, we would have got the same exact resistance level, right? It would have stopped out where it's at presently. So the cool thing about Fibonacci lines is just that it really helps you understand where you can consider adding to your position or where the next potential stopping point might be. So, if things go well, or just say this repeats the same behavior, we could see a continuation here, perhaps even a break above to the next tier. Okay, that's essentially what we could see. Just bear in mind, we're at a 4 on TD sequential on the 4 hour chart. So we do have 5 hours left of bullish momentum. There could be a chance that we see this actually continue upwards sooner than that. All right, but one very last thing, the last caveat here is the fact that the Mogul Cloud has no indication that we want to sell our positions that are either open, or if you consider taking a position now, there's no reason to want to sell it, if that makes any sense. Again, things can go wrong, things can go south, it can totally fall flat on its face tomorrow, but it doesn't have any indication as to why it should do that, right? So all these numbers, everything that we see here so far is all favorable. It all seems like very well, and I think that we're going to see a very strong likelihood of a continuation. Now, how much higher will it go? Here's a best case scenario, right? I don't usually like to give best case scenarios, but we'll work our way down, right? So November 16th, this is roughly 2.5, 3 weeks of trading, okay? In that 3 weeks of trading, Remarker, RMKR, has increased 117%. So if we're going to have that same type of increase, right, we're going to get that same potential, 2x from its previous starting point here in November 16th, we're going to be able to see $84 as a potential over the next 3 weeks. Right, and that's again just based on a rinse and repeat. If it repeats the same behavior, does it over again, we're going to see that in that time frame. Now, in my experience, I would say that's 50-50 for that to occur, right? Because again, if this continues on and it becomes unhealthy, it will have stronger potential of not getting to that goal quicker, if that makes any sense, because obviously a good continuation requires short periods of consolidation. Here's something that's awesome. This does have very good, healthy considerations of staircase patterns. Like this is definitely something I like to kind of point out to my community. When the price comes up and goes sideways, you keep going like this, it keeps legging up like this, it's going to get there before you know it. It's going to be one of those sleepers too, though. That's the great thing about this type of trend that you see. I don't know if you remember seeing BNB back in May. It took off from like 250 to 600 in like 3 weeks. Nobody saw it coming because it slowly crept 10 to 15% per day. This has the same shape, the same kind of dynamic as that. And it's the fact that it's broken free from Bitcoin is equally as important. Those things are all very, very satisfying, very beneficial, I guess you could say, causing this to continue. Now, bear in mind, a lot of growth in a short amount of time. We have to have consolidation a little bit longer than just, 8 to 12 hours. If we can get 24 to 48 hours, keep testing that resistance line, I would absolutely consider adding to my position at that point and going and taking it long to the upside. It's a great chance it'll break. Okay, so we'll just pay closer attention to this again here soon, kind of see what's going on. But thank you so much for joining me here, of course. No, enough rambling on about this. I hope you learned a little bit here and there. Obviously, comment below if you did. Consider joining my Patreon community or just in general. Thank you very much for your support. Greatly appreciate you and all of my members. We'll look forward to seeing you in the next video. Have a great rest of your day. Take care.